I've even had my struggles with God. I've had my private struggles with God.
Kirk Franklin has been a name synonymous with gospel music, captivating many hearts for decades. However, as he turns 54, he unveils a truth that has lingered and remained hidden for many years. Something many have speculated. Does this have anything to do with his childhood, music career, or marriage? Fans are stunned, and everyone is shocked, as they never saw this coming. What revelations has the gospel music icon made? Will this change what we've known about him all these years? Watch this video to the end as we unveil these truths.
That's what drives me. I can't afford to be forgotten.
From growing up in a bad and extremely dangerous environment to making mistakes as a teenager, and even to battles Kirk Franklin fought in his adult life, the beloved gospel music artist has had his fair share of trauma. Over the past few years, he has been kind enough to bring this trauma to the public notice. He did not do this to get pity from people. He did this because he wanted people to see that one can suffer from troubles, but still achieve their dreams. He brought this out to motivate others to not give up on their dreams because they are experiencing difficulties. However, Kirk Franklin started speaking out about his struggle with his mental health after he had experienced several demise in his family. When he first started talking about it, the people found it difficult to believe that Franklin, who has been the recipient of 12 Grammy Awards and also led a lot of gospel choirs, was struggling with depression and anxiety, but he was. Franklin began sharing these dark experiences in 2019 when he was 49. "I struggled with a lot of anxiety, and I got into a funk that I couldn't get out of, this dark funk that I was in of depression," Franklin shared in a video posted to Instagram. At the time, many wondered what could make him feel that way, and he said the feeling came after he had experienced a high amount of loss in his life, when he was talking about the loss of many of his family members at the time. According to him, he had gone to more funerals in the year 2019 than he had ever been to in his entire life. All around him, his friends and family members were dying, and he attended the funerals of friends, people's parents, and even funerals of people's kids. This traumatized him for a long period and made him question everything he had come to know and love about life. He became a dangerous, deep thinker and worried about what life meant. Franklin knew he could not continue on that path, or it would lead to his destruction, so he immediately sought help. In a video he uploaded, he spoke about how he usually sought help dealing with these problems from his pastor, Dr. Tony Evans. Still, after a while, he noticed that the pastor also had his loss, and it felt to him like he was triggering emotions that the man was also trying to deal with. So he began to retreat slowly. His pastor's wife, Lois, lost her life on the 3rd of December 2019. However, Franklin did not stop there. He went ahead and met other Christian therapists, and he spoke to them about the troubles he was facing and what he was going through. He spoke about his thoughts and feelings of anxiety and unworthiness. Kirk mentioned in the video that fear is rooted in self. He also mentioned that he was grateful he had gone to a Christian therapist because they encouraged him to remember God's love for him and to look at life with gratitude. He added that these were the exact words he needed to grow and overcome the battle he was facing. He also added that the event opened his eyes to what many were battling and how some did not have anyone they could go to and get the soothing words they needed to not do something drastic. At the end of his video, he expressed love and hope and encouraged everyone to see the world through God's love and thankfulness to be alive. He said, "Have a strong year. God has not forgotten you." However, these weren't the only struggles he faced. He also struggled to meet and be on good terms with his father. Was he eventually able to meet him? How did it play out? Before we unveil these details, let's look at his early life. Early life and musical career. Kirk Franklin, a native of Fort Worth, was raised by his Aunt Gertrude after his mother abandoned him as a baby. As of then, Gertrude didn't earn much, and they stayed in a very disturbing neighborhood. But once she realized that Franklin had a burning love for music, she knew she had to do everything to help the young boy pursue his career. So she started recycling aluminum cans to raise enough money to take Kirk to piano lessons. When this happened, Kirk was 4 years old. At a very tender age, the young boy was introduced to the beautiful world of music. Kirk did not take his aunt's sacrifice lightly, and he excelled in music. He could read and write music while also playing by ear. This rare talent in such a young boy brought many eyes to his direction, and at the age of 7, he received his very first contract, but unfortunately, his aunt turned it down. She mentioned that he was far too young for that, and she did not want such immediate fame to get to his head and make him start doing what he should not. Nevertheless, that wasn't the end of the journey for young Kirk. Later, he joined the church choir, and when he was 11 years old, he became the music director of the Mount Rose Baptist Church Adult Choir, an achievement that most people his age never reached. This achievement played a great role in fueling the love he had for music. Unfortunately, during his teenage years, his aunt noticed a rebellion against religion from the boy. This could be a result of the strict religious upbringing he had, and the dangerous environment in which he was raised. When it looked like it would get out of hand, his grandmother arranged an audition for him at a professional youth conservatory associated with a local university. After the audition, he was accepted, but later he had to deal with his then-girlfriend's pregnancy and his eventual expulsion from school for bad behavior. However, Franklin did not stay on the ground for long. He studied music with Jewel Kelly and the Singing Chaparrals at Oscar Dean Wyatt High School. After much dedication to the choir, he eventually became their pianist. Things started going well for young Franklin after this, and he enjoyed his life. However, when he turned 15, another great milestone shaped his life. Kirk Franklin witnessed the demise of a friend by shooting. The event traumatized him, and he went back to church and again directed the choir. The experience he gathered from doing this allowed him to co-found a gospel group, the Humble Hearts. When in this group, Crick recorded one of his compositions that got the attention of gospel music legend Milton Bigham, musical director of the Georgia Mass Choir. Bigham was impressed with his work and immediately enlisted him to lead the DFW Mass Choir in a recording of Franklin's song, Every Day with Jesus. The success of this song immediately led to Bigham hiring Franklin, who was just 20 years old. Kirk was hired to lead the choir at the 1990 Gospel Music Workshop of America convention, an industry gathering. This paved the way for his subsequent success in gospel music. However, despite having a successful career, Kirk understood that love was one of the things he could not deprive himself of. What was his love story like? Is that what he has admitted that stunned everyone? Let's find out. Personal life. On the 20th of January 1996, he married his longtime friend whom he had grown to love. The woman, Tammy Collins, also loved him dearly and was happy to spend the rest of her life with him. Though they both had one child from their previous relationships, they did not allow this to stand in their way. They became a couple and had 2 children together. A few months after the wedding, it looked like life was jealous of how good Kirk had it and wanted to take him away because, in November 1996, he had a near-death experience. While on stage performing, Kirk Franklin accidentally fell into an orchestra pit. This happened during a concert in Memphis. He suffered a major head injury, which put him in a very critical condition. When he was rushed to the hospital, he was soaked in blood, but thankfully the doctors were well trained, and he received so much love and support from his wife. It didn't take long before he made a full recovery. His children have grown so much over the years, and many have started carving a niche for themselves. However, the people soon realized that even the Franklin family had issues. He got this understanding in March 2021 when his oldest son, Carrion, released an audio recording of a private conversation with his father. In between the conversations, people could hear Kirk and Carrion using a lot of profanity. This release negatively stirred the public because Kirk has been a gospel music artist and should not be heard saying such words, especially to his children. After a while, Kirk realized what he had done wrong and publicly apologized to his fans and followers. Even though this was not the best incident that had happened to Kirk, it served as a reminder to people that he was also human and could not be perfect all the time. It also showed people what it means to be kind to people and respect them.
Hard against it, and drinking, smoking, and being very promiscuous, made a lot of mistakes.
The journey to meet his father did not play a causal role in his life. After time passed, he was finally comfortable enough to talk about the trials he went through to meet his dad. According to him, he fought hidden battles, was always at war with his inner self, and had to deal with a lot of deception, trauma, and pain. These feelings came from his childhood, and he had tried over time to suppress them. However, the journey to meet his dad brought them back, and he began to see that they were not as easy as he had imagined. He was now more worried than ever because every day he kept remembering what being abandoned and orphaned did to him. He indicated that the situation left him broken and living a life filled with insecurities, despite all the accomplishments he made in his lifetime. A voice always told him that he was not worth it and would never be loved because his parents didn't love him enough to be in his life. He also said more about this in his compelling documentary and explained all the logistics associated with his journey to meeting his biological father. Their reunion happened after a full 53 years, and it was heartwarming to all who cared to listen. In the same documentary, Franklin talked about the trauma he faced being raised by a distant relative, and the gut-wrenching feeling of not knowing who his father was and only seeing his mother a few times a year. In the documentary, he said, "I would see my biological mother, Deborah, maybe once or twice a year. When you see your biological parents 2 or 3 times a year, it's a scar that never gets to heal because when they leave, they are ripping that scar. So you grow up with a lot of rejection issues. You grow up with a lot of, why am I not good enough to go with you?" He continued, "So it was a very lonely life. The only thing that was my constant was a small piano in the front of the house. That began my relationship with God as a little boy. His love for music was the only thing holding him together after experiencing something so tragic and not allowing the public to know about his pain. He battled with insecurities. Somehow music was the only thing soothing and keeping him sane. He mentioned that he always felt like God was comforting and healing him of his wounds whenever he would sing. So his songs came from a deep place. Maybe that was why they resonated with so many people. Even when Franklin was battling with thoughts of why he was not good enough for his parents to take him away with them, he was always thankful that the love of music was ever present to take him out of the projects and make him one of the most successful and recognizable names in gospel music. He told People magazine that at the age of 6, he was introduced to a man that his biological mother said was his biological father. But little did he know that it was a lie. However, as a young boy who had spent his entire life without a father figure, he was so excited to have the man with him, and never for once thought that his mother could lie to him. He told the outlet, "I didn't see him again until I was 13, and he started showing up at concerts after my first album came out. I was angry at the fact that I did not have a father, and he dared to show up once my life seemed to have some sense of order. The same goes for my biological mother. It felt to him like he was just being useful to them because he had gotten rich and famous, and they wanted in on that too. It was sickening to him, and he often wondered if they had any love for him deep down." According to Franklin, as his career began to take off, that was when his mother showed up almost every day. He described the whole scenario as being extremely traumatizing for him. When he sat to look back at it now, it felt like the whole drama with a fake dad for him was to make sure the young man did not have any reason to dislike his mother and that the woman could perfectly benefit from the money he was making. However, young Kirk did not believe this could be true back then, so he tried to maintain a relationship with the man, but they had a rocky one. Kirk did not know what having a father felt like, but he always knew deep down that something was wrong with his relationship with that man. This relationship continued till the man passed away in 2017. When Kirk heard the news, he was devastated. In his book, he wrote, "I buried the man I thought was my father. I even flew to Houston and made peace with him." The realization he had as he was writing this part of the book did a lot to damage his mental health. But still, he continued. In the book, Franklin said even when the man died, he had no idea that he was not his father. The truth only came out later. The events that led to this understanding started when one of Kirk's vocalists attended a funeral in her hometown. According to the woman, at the funeral, she met a man who claimed he dated Franklin's mother at one point. The vocalist was intrigued and engaged in more discussion with the man. She told him about how Kirk was now very successful and how he had lost his father a few years back. The man indicated interest in this and said he had heard the woman was pregnant. Their discussion lengthened and many secrets were revealed during this time. Before anyone realized it, rumors spread that Richard Hubbard could actually be Kirk Franklin's father. At first, Kirk did not want to believe it because that would only mean his mother had lied to him, and he was unsure he could handle it. However, everyone else was eager to know the truth, and his wife convinced him to perform a DNA test and be sure of what he was doing. Kirk heeded her advice and went on with the DNA test, and the result was 99% accurate. Once Kirk got the result, he was shattered to pieces. He told People magazine, "To live over half a century with somebody who lived in the same city as you. I suffered so much as a young man without guidance. I struggled with love, intimacy, faith, and identity, and to know that the answer was less than 10 minutes away. The entire incident broke him into different pieces, and the documentary also captures the emotional first meeting of father and son. After meeting the man, he realized he did not know he had a son, just like Kirk did not even know he had a father. However, he also learned that when he was born, his father was around 14 or 15 years old. So he figured that what happened was two children who fell in love and decided that they could, with ease, do what most adults struggled to do. I was that close to having a daddy, Kirk emotionally shared. I wanted a daddy so bad. All those sleepless nights, all those times I was messing up in school and life and had no one to take up for me. All of those times I didn't know what love was. Love is a muscle that has to be trained, and if it hasn't been trained, it doesn't mean that when you get introduced to it now, you know how to receive it, Franklin continued. I think that you can become indoctrinated in trauma. On the other hand, due to some unknown reasons, his mother has refused to accept the results of the DNA test, and this action of hers has only contributed greatly to the cycle of trauma Kirk is constantly battling. She's just very adamant that this man is not my father, Franklin shared. I have not heard or talked to her since the second test result. This incident made Kirk think deeply about the kind of relationship he had with his children. He realized that he could not allow his children to go through the very same trauma he experienced, so he worked things out with them. He first started with his eldest son, Carrion, with whom he was in a very bad relationship. According to Kirk, he and his son had been at odds for years, which led to the heated audio conversation he had with his son in 2021. Kirk mentioned that since then, they have not talked for 2 years. I have fathered out of fear most of my parenting life, he said. Because of what I experienced, I was like, I'll be damned if I let my kids feel that type of pain. So often I overparented and overperformed, bought too many bicycles, ran off too many boyfriends, just wanting to protect. His childhood had a lot to do with how he felt, and he had to learn the hard way that his overprotectiveness and what he seemed to believe was extremely good parenting was not the best. He also admitted that his children were the best part of his life. In his documentary, he shared that having the ability to express the struggles he faced emotionally through music kept him sane. I needed this album, he shared. I needed to work. His inspirational gospel album, Father's Day, was released on the 6th of October. According to Kirk, the title of the album, Father's Day, has a triple meaning. He explained that the logline is, "It's what I missed where I am and what has always been."
It really wasn't until my first year of marriage, I was 26 years old, when I sat down with my wife and told her, I said, hey, you're my best friend.
For many people who grew up in the church, they can understand how very easy it is to live a double life. Many act one way on Sunday mornings and completely different during the week. Many people in the church battle with demons that they sometimes feel unable to explain to the next person. So much so that they can outwardly pursue God and serve others, but inwardly they care more about their selfish pursuits than actually caring about Jesus. We often see people struggling in silence, and they do not let anyone in. One of the things they greatly suffer from is carnal relations to sin, and this sin provides the opportunity for one to stay in secret because it thrives in the dark. Recently, though, Kirk Franklin has admitted that he was once among those who led this double life and fought with this secret struggle. He admitted that he has been putting out Christian albums since the early 90s, and that even when he was making music, living the church life, and serving God, he was silently drowning in his cravings for adult content, which consumed him for over 21 years. He said, I was doing albums that people were getting blessed by, and I was struggling with adult content. Why We Sing came out in '93, and I struggled with adult content. Stomp came out in '97, and I was struggling with adult content. God was speaking through these albums, and everyone was getting their victory except me. I used to question and almost began to wonder, what's going on? This struggle made him question many things about Christianity and whether he was doing enough for God. However, after feeling bad about it, he decided to trace it to its origin and deal with it. That was when he realized that his cravings had roots in the kind of upbringing he had. He grew up in a toxic family. Mistreatments, unhealthy habits, and the like were part of his home. And worse, he was adopted at age 4, but he still knew who his birth mother was, even when he did not understand why the woman did not want him. At 8, he was already exposed to adult content, and he got hooked on it. In such content, he found something that was like a counterfeit acceptance. and he also found a female intimacy that he lacked as a result of his non-existent relationship with his actual birth mother. However, that wasn't all. As a teenager, he often got into trouble and had a very strict upbringing. However, due to some issues, he walked away from God. Kirk described himself as being very promiscuous when he was a teenager. He describes what his pastor told him. He said, "Oh, you're young, you'll grow out of it." He had no idea that he spoke death into my life. That shut me down because I thought, well, someday I'll grow out. Instead, I grew in and I grew in deep. From all indications, he did not have proper and loving guidance and mentorship, so it was easy for adult content to creep in and latch onto his mind and heart. The craving was so strong that it followed him into his marriage. However, when Franklin married, he expected that it would help with his unhealthy cravings. Unfortunately, he rapidly discovered he was deeply dependent on it. When he realized he could not fix his craving that way, he took steps toward getting rid of it. One of the things he did was throw those adult content magazines into a dumpster and drive away. He said, "I tried to go to sleep that night, and it was literally like a drug calling me. About 3 or 4 in the morning, in my flip-flops and boxers, I got in my car, drove back to that dumpster, and dug." When interviewers asked his wife, Tammy, she also confirmed that she could feel the impact of his cravings on their intimate life, and this was before he even told her about it. According to her, she knew that he was badly battling, and she even commented that intimacy with him started to not feel special because no one expects to feel dirty when they are with their husband. After contemplating for a while, Franklin realized he had to tell Tammy about his unhealthy habits because he knew they had become a serious problem in his marriage. At that point, though, he did not see adult content as something he could grow out of anymore. Rather, he saw it as an aid to his intimate life. He said, "I see adult content as such a carnal act that I saw it as cheating. I was bringing images of other women into my bedroom with my wife." In the second year of their marriage, Kirk told Tammy all about his unhealthy cravings. He approached them as a sin, something he hated deeply and wanted freedom from, so Tammy's heart softened toward him, and she was very supportive. She prayed for him often and even convinced him to confess to their pastor. So Kirk confessed to his pastor, Dr. Tony Evans, and sought his mentorship. This relationship taught him humility and discipline. Franklin talks to people about how they should not relent in this fight against carnal relation to sin. He talks about how important accountability is. "I get evangelically ticked off by the fact that I wished somebody would have taught me a long time ago about the repercussions of carnal relations and flesh and lust and vanity and pride and ego. I wished somebody would have been holding my little behind accountable years ago." His story inspired so many people, and heartwarming comments were made in the video he brought out about his struggle with adult content cravings. One person said, "I'm so inspired by Kirk Franklin and his life story. Yes, in him, I do see a church boy with a horrific past who was ensnared by lust. However, I also see a man whom Jesus loves and died for, who has found healing and freedom from lust, and has shared his journey with Jesus in hopes that it might encourage others. Even amid his struggle with adult content, I see a man willing to be vulnerable, not give up, despite overwhelming hardship, and fight to know freedom." What are your thoughts on all these? Do you think he did the right thing by talking about his struggles and dark secrets, or should he have taken the secret to the grave? Leave your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to our channel. You can also watch the other videos displayed on your screen.